Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
The election of 2024 has already started in Ohio. Have you heard the story?
So Ohio is home for you. It's a home I love, your home I love to visit, but it's ground zero now. It is front line. It is the main battlefield. And what I think the result of this battle will be the outcome of a war. And it really is about death itself. As I said, the amendment is so loosely written, recklessly written. It is just laced with chaos and unintended consequences. It is an absolute blank check for death. It makes Planned Parenthood an unequal branch of government.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on and on. I want to cut to this. We brought up earlier that the whole Zuckerberg game that he played 3 years ago, and here we are again. Why do they keep picking Ohio?
Sure. And the Ohio is the home headquarters of the American Policy Roundtable and the Public Square Media Network, which I have the privilege to serve. And we started our organization here. We've now, as you know, are in multiple states. So I spend a lot of time in our office in Tennessee and our office in Orlando and working with people all over the country. I'm constantly on the road and have been for a long, long time because we're trying to help people from the state level up make a solid, positive, responsible contribution to the ethics of the public policy of this country. And here is a perfect example. Now, Michael, our organization at the American Policy Roundtable is headquartered in a state that has the citizen initiative and referendum. We can go to the ballot in the state of Ohio. The citizens can do that. Pennsylvania next door, we do a lot of work on the public square next door at Pennsylvania. They don't have that same right. Not every state's got that situation. So Ohio is one of those states that in 1912 was fed up with the corruption in the legislature, so they passed the citizen-based initiative to hold the legislature accountable. So Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry has seized upon that process. They have every legal right to do so, and they've placed this measure on the ballot. Now, why Ohio?
Why not California? Why not New York? Why not some easy slam dunk, maybe even pro-death, let alone pro-choice state? I wouldn't think that's Ohio.
Well, see, those they've already got. They know that's easy, low-hanging fruit, not a problem whatsoever. They will, through either statute or amendment, have, and there is a proposed constitutional amendment coming to New York in 2024. But see, if it passes in New York, everybody's going to say, yeah, well, of course, it's New York. Abortion was legal in New York before Roe versus Wade. So was California. They'll say it's just back to the same old thing.
Let me rephrase the question. So why not Oklahoma? Why not Louisiana? Why not Tennessee?
And now this is important. This is a case where this is Planned Parenthood on the offense. This is not pro-lifers trying to come up with a heartbeat bill or a 24-week viability bill.
I get that.
This is Planned Parenthood's on the. Why Ohio? Very simple. If they can put something this extreme, this crazy, this ill-defined, this unrestricted and unlimited, if they can pull that over and put it in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution of Ohio, one, they have precedent to be able to create an ultimate Supreme Court conflict, which would literally blow up the whole concept of where we are with life, because they'd come at it from the other end. Tell you what I mean by that. It's not going to be possible for the United States of America to have a situation where you have absolutely unrestricted in all of these elements, these kinds of things we're talking about in this amendment, quantified as a human right in the Bill of Rights. It's one thing if a state decides to pass a statute and says, in our state, for our citizens, there'll be a 12-week viability question or a 6-week viability question. The Supreme Court's going to say, laboratories of democracy, you guys have got to work this out. We told you go work it out. You're doing it. We're out of this. This is an attempt to drag this right back into a federal unified single doctrine for all states by saying it's not legal to have a human right in one state and not have that same human right because it is a human right in the next state. They're attempting to relitigate the entire case through this constitutional right issue. That's number one. Number two, the politics of this is screaming. This is 2024. This is the issue of 2024. This is what they're really after. Because if they can win this on a ballot issue in Ohio in 2023, they will catapult that issue into the 2024 Senate election in Ohio and into the presidential election in Ohio. They believe they can keep Sherrod Brown elected based on this issue, and that they can beat whoever the Republican is and flip Ohio. And if they flip Ohio, they automatically win the next presidential election. This is all the marbles for them.
Yeah, well, and a layer under that is secure, energizing. They've lost the female gap. What do we call that? Not the female
gender gap.
So the gender gap is
Which
gone.
you probably can't use that term anymore. I don't know.
I don't know if you can use that politically, but all right. So the gender gap is gone. This will energize women voters, they think. It would also energize the base on the issue of choice so that they don't look at things like the failed economy, the failed promises of unity, the failed border, every other failure of this administration. There's nothing political about this amendment. It's just a blank check for death and, free access to chaos. But from a political standpoint, I think you're right. I think this was not only do they want to get this to be passed and win, they want it to catapult into being the defining narrative of the 24 election. And it might be wise for them because there's no energy coming from Biden, that's for sure.
Well, and think about this. Here's the other thing. They have unlimited resources to do it because this is the Planned Parenthood survival guide right here. This is they are literally fighting for their fiscal life. If they can get this in one state, they can use it as a battering ram in every state to stay in business and to keep getting paid. People forget. They think that this is an ideological warfare. It's yes, but at its core, it's about money. Planned Parenthood survives and has an entire network of thousands of people who get paid every week, every month because of abortion. This is an industry. Big Pharma is making lots of money on the Plan B pills, on the morning after pills. This is a reality. This is an industry that's an industry of death along with an ideology of death.
Well, I can tell you reading the amendment that there's no way to hold even the pharmaceutical companies accountable if anything goes wrong either. That's the beauty of this vagueness as well.
In 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court made a mistake. They decided a child in the womb was not a person and not endowed with the right to life. Since that day, America has walked in the shadows of death. Even now, after the final overturning of Roe v. Wade, the shadows threaten to grow longer. In the 1980s, Phil Keaggy released a song titled Little Ones, hoping to awaken America to the light of life. Miles apart and years away from meeting, Michael and David both heard that song. Both heard the cry of the unborn, and both prayed that God would show them a way to speak out for life. Please follow the link in this episode's description to hear Phil Keaggy's song, Little Ones.
All right, so why Ohio? Why not Ohio and Oklahoma? Why not Ohio, Oklahoma, and California? Concentration of power. You pick one state,
Yep.
and then you pool your resources. We've already seen some signs that money could be coming from other states for this concentrated attack. Now, the question becomes, are the people in Ohio and the people of this nation, especially those who believe in a creator and creation, God is sacred, his creation is sacred, this is life and death, this is good and evil stuff. It's also just a really bad civics lesson in an amendment, but are they paying attention?
Okay.
Could they literally pull this off?
2 points. I had to write some things to our trustees today and some of our dearest friends. And I got to tell you, it wasn't a good morning for me because we've been doing this for 43 years. We've had more ballot issue experience than any other organization, probably in the Midwest. It's certainly, maybe even in the country. We've been doing this for a long time. When you put a major policy issue with national ramifications for a generation and you place it in an off election year, where the only two things that are going to be on the statewide ballot in Ohio are recreational marijuana and this abortion provision, creating abortion as a right, and a whole lot more. So really, I mean, to be accurate, it's really the reproductive decisions right Those are the only two things going to be on there. Do you know that a whole...
The self-evident truths of our era is be stoned and kill.
Yep. Be stoned and do whatever you want without consequence. Yeah. And by the way, just in case you're wondering, they're forgetting somebody, quite obviously.
The consent of the governed.
So the child. They've got a real airtight case until you realize there's somebody else involved in this decision, and that's where the debate always stops, and they have no answers. But why Ohio? Why Ohio? Why Ohio? Because it is a huge battering ram tool. And then my concern is, are people actually going to get out and vote? And I'm going to tell you that same thing that I told our trustees this morning. I've been doing this a long time. It was the protection of innocent human life and the resistance of political tyranny that called me into this work. Those issues haunted me to the fact that I had to find some way to spend my life working on these issues. That was a long time ago. It was 1985. But it started for me even longer than that. The point is, I don't know, after doing this for all these years, I honestly don't know what causes people to get up and pull a ballot, write for an absentee ballot, or to go and vote early, or to vote on election day. I don't know why they get up and do it. I've studied everything. I've done the MIT studies on the Obama campaigns in 08 and 12. I've studied those numbers inside out. I know the techniques that are used. I know the money that's spent. I know where it's spent. I've studied polling. But at the end of the day, what causes a person to say, I don't want to do this? They don't want to go to the dentist. They don't want to make a dentist appointment. I don't want to be bothered. Just leave me alone. I'm not going to have an abortion. It doesn't affect my life. Leave me alone. What is it that would cause a person to get up off the couch and go vote? What would cause them to do that? That's what haunts me, Michael, every day. Will they get up and they respond?
We've dusted out thoroughly why Ohio. There's no question this is the new ground zero. This is the new battleground. And they want this to be a one battle war. And if they can do it in Ohio, they'll use precedents and slam it down all the other states' throat. Now we've kind of shifted to why a special election? Why not wait for the presidential election for this very reason? They want their low turnout and controllable, and then they'll have their money that they're going to be bringing in from other states. It makes it winnable for them where the other wouldn't be.
Strategically, one other thought, though, in that they know they can control a certain number of the vote count. So they went out and gathered signatures. They presented 710,000 signatures. Truth of the matter is that might represent 500,000 people who will turn back around again in November and vote for the measure. Because a lot of people, once the campaign goes on, they realize they didn't even know what they were signing. And I can assure you, I'd like to find one person of the 710,000 people that signed that petition who could explain to me what the actual language means.
Or why the word woman isn't mentioned, why abortion isn't mentioned, or, all the other.
Yeah.
But I guess my next question would be, they're choosing Ohio, they're choosing a special election, all that to get everything in their favor. Would Ohio otherwise be pro-life?
Ohio, for my entire career in politics, over 40 years, Ohio in a statewide election has always had a pro-life advantage. It's gone from 4 to 8 to 10 to 4, but somewhere between 4 and 10 percentage points on a statewide election, if a candidate is pro-life, they have that advantage over their opponent. That's universal consultant understood reality in Ohio. Yes, Ohio is a voting pro-life state. That's in a general election. But in a special, it's not really a special, it's an off-off election year. So in an off-off November election, you'll have a difference between maybe 6.5 million people voting, 6 million people voting in a presidential election.
1, 2?
No, you'll actually have the highest number since 2009 has been 3.6 million.
Oh, I'm surprised it's that high.
So this one may even get it to 4 million. So the question is, how did we get 2 million people off the couch? And I don't mean that disrespectfully. Look, I don't like going to the dentist either. And voting is inconvenient. I get that. Unless somehow you realize that what you're going to do will mean everything in regards to literally saving human lives and saving a culture.
Well, you brought up, there's a scripture behind the song. You brought up what drew you to this battle. Mine began, I believe, in 78, 79. Someone will have to double check. Phil Keaggy did a song, Who Will Speak Up for the Little Ones? And I remember being a teenager and hearing that song. You said just a few moments ago, and that was so profound. there's one person that hasn't been represented in this case or brought up in this case. That's the child himself. And that's what this song dares to do by way of Proverbs 31, which encourages us to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Who will speak up for these little ones? I made a pledge at 14 years old. I'm here doing it at 58. But having said that, in all of my life, I wish everybody would sit down with this amendment and read it the way I did. David, this didn't feel political. This is such a level of deception and distortion. It felt like it was coming from the author of death himself. This is such a plea and a blank check for death. This is so different than anything you and I have ever fought. We used to fight against, well, I'm pro-life, but they'll call me, anti-abortion. Or, all these little semantic games and word games that we play because no one wants to talk about the baby. Nobody wants to talk about when life begins. And nobody wants to talk about what has been acidically or through suction just thrown in a trash can. Which begs the question, why if abortion is so normal and so right and now an inalienable right, how come you never see procedures in 48 hours or Dateline or anywhere else? This has always been turn a blind eye to, but I have never seen the gloves off like this. The way this reads is just...
It's terrifying. This is the right to reproductive decisions. They won't even say abortion in the name of the right. Can you imagine that? But that's where they are. Now, Michael, I got to tell you, this impacts the whole nation. That's the reason we're talking about it.
Well, yeah.
It impacts the entire nation. If they win this fight in Ohio in an off-off election year because the pro-life people who would normally vote either didn't know, didn't think about it, didn't care, didn't want to be bothered, if they don't understand the absolute urgency of this crisis, then these guys are going to win because they're going to go to the college campuses this fall. They're going to register everyone they can no matter where they live. Because in Ohio, if you can simply provide a residence validation, you can come up with a utility bill that shows your address, you can go and register to vote in Ohio, and you can vote in Ohio. You can register early enough that you can vote in November. As soon as these kids hit the campus, they are going to be instantly, even before they hit the campus. Then, once it comes time for election time, they will get every single person. It will be the hippest thing to do. There will be rock concerts there. They'll bring in the glitterati. They'll have everybody in the famous world sitting out at every major big state university, getting those people to apply those votes for this measure because it will be hip. They won't read the language. They won't consider what it means. They'll simply be buffaloed, not because they're stupid. They're not stupid, but because they're not informed. Michael, if we took the language of this amendment and we let every person in the state of Ohio, every person in America read it, take them about 10 minutes. We actually put together one of these. We took the actual language and we put all of our staff notes on it and we published it. Now, all you got to do to get one, a simplest way to get one is go to aproundtable.org. That's AP as in American Policy Roundtable.org. Just go to aproundtable.org. It's the parent organization of the public square.
We could make it a little tabletop here at 1850 Main Street as well.
We're going to make it a table. We're going to put it on the walls. I mean, it's a simple, and you can look at, and you know what? Every single person that has looked at this has said, one, this idea is a disaster. Two, how can I send this to everyone I know? Yes. But Michael, we could win this debate right now with one arm tied behind our back and an eye patch. I mean, you could win this debate in a snap. This is like high school debate. You couldn't lose this. But will that get people out of their seats to vote?
Will they read it, and will they go and vote in a buried election? And I don't have to tell you the landslide of money that they're going to use. We often said over the past 4 or 5 decades, America's at a crossroads and it's going to have to choose whether or not, like our founding fathers, it's going to be a culture of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, or a culture of death. The left would always say that's so dramatic that you assume it's death when you don't know when life begins. Read this amendment.
Read this amendment.
They don't even bother with any of that. This is all about death.
This conversation isn't over yet, so come on back next time and pull up a chair at 1850 Main Street. To help spread the word, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To find out more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. We'll see you soon.